Welcome. This week on Wild Outdoors, we study the swimmer. We'll take a deeper look into the life of these majestic animals. Sometimes they'll swim right up to your boat looking for food, as demonstrated by this adult male. But be wary, do not let the appearance fool you. These can be dangerous animals. Keep your distance. So jumping right into it, we are obviously talking about avoiding flipping your kayak. And there's basically two categories of flipping a kayak. One will involve a broach or an impediment or an obstruction in the river, like a rock or a log or a tree. And the other one will be just forces of water. And that's what we'll be talking about today. And thanks to Steve Sharon from Adventure Outdoors, this has got to be the best example of the quintessential flip I've ever recorded. Now, no knock on Steve, but he does everything wrong. As you see here, the blue arrow will represent the direction of flow or the force of the water. Unfortunately for Steve, in this scenario, he is actually already doomed. If you look closely, he has already released his grip on the paddle, which is just resting between his torso and the bottom of his forearms. He's leaning to the left with his body, but his kayak is leaning to the right. And that's because when the force of the water engages the kayak, the keel, the sides of the boat, the edges, it starts what's called a window shade. The window shading effect is the actual rolling of the kayak. If you get hit hard, you'll go over so fast you feel like an old window shade getting pulled up. Since the water can only act with the parts of the boat that are underwater, that would be the lowest parts of the boat, and they get pushed downstream faster than anything else. And that results in the downstream side popping up into the air, as you see demonstrated by the yellow circle. Now, what you'll find in kayaking is that most things are counter-instinctual and counterintuitive. When your downstream side, which would be Steve's left side here, comes up into the air, he wants to fix that by leaning to the left, which is actually the wrong answer. And when you lean further to the left, as demonstrated by the blue circle, you form the incorrect C for the situation. And this C will actually not place your torso above the kayak like you're wanting to happen. Rather, it will lift your left knee, as demonstrated by the blue arrow, and drop your right hip or your right edge, thus giving the river even more boat to grab onto. And we also have a special treat, as you see highlighted in pink. Steve has done the official grab the boat with my left hand trick, which feels like the right thing to do, but all it does is guarantee that you body slam the boat on top of yourself when you finally complete the action of window shading. And you'll know you've done well when you get a 2 to 3 foot flume of splash coming off your head as it hits the water. So let's give Steve a hand. He captured every component of the quintessential bad form flip. So there are a few things I can talk about here that are going to help you avoid flipping. And the number one thing we're going to do is edge the boat. And anytime you have a cross current hitting one side of the boat, you are going to need to lift that edge of the boat upward so the water can pass underneath the hull without grabbing onto your boat. And I'm in some major cross current here in my whitewater boat, and this will demonstrate kind of an aggressive exaggerated view of what I'm talking about. And as I come back across this ferry, my boat will engage the rapid on the left side, so I'll lift that left knee way up in the air and actually form a C, leaning my body the other direction. Here we'll show Adam as he enters for his first would-be surf and doesn't quite make it, but he has great form and I'll freeze it right here. So everything about this photo is as it should be. And let me break down what we're looking at here. Number one, we're talking about the force of the water. That's your blue arrow. So that's gonna cause that window shading rotation demonstrated by the red arrow. Now he's offset that force with a good edge. So he's lifted his right knee and he's got his boat on a pretty aggressive edge demonstrated by the green bar. And the way he did that was to form the correct C, which is actually making a C towards the oncoming current, thus lifting your right knee in this situation and the right edge of your boat. And what this does, as demonstrated by the yellow arrow, is to propel the boat downstream in a stable manner, actually also causing a little bit of lift. And the X factor in this photo is the pink circle. We're not grabbing the high side of the boat as we flip, but rather we've got a paddle in the water. And that's going to be the number two thing you can do to avoid a flip. Keep your paddle in the water. So this was Yackleberry's very first time kind of training in this regard to do this really heavy cross current entry, peel out, surf, whatever you want to call it. And he did pretty good. As you can see, he's doing good now. He's got his paddle downstream, good angle. He releases it a little bit there, but fortunately he had enough downward momentum already where it carried him through, and you can see his paddle stays in the water throughout. So good job, Adam. Unfortunately, in this next scene, things did not turn out so well. He's coming in there a little straighter. He's trying to get up in the meat of it to do a surf, and he achieves that. Unfortunately, the water grabs that right edge right there. The water stacks up on the right side of the boat and starts the window shade. His C is in the wrong direction. His paddle's on the upstream side, causing a paddle trip, and his fate is sealed. And as a bonus tip, if you do find yourself flipping, leaning back, gasping for air is the wrong answer. What you're going to want to do is go ahead and lean forward and protect your face and your head from anything that might be under the surface of the water. And in this next clip, you can see Pete basically paddle into the seam parallel with the seam. This is something you don't want to do and is a guaranteed opportunity to flip your kayak. The seam will create the window shading effect both ways. As the water stacks up on Pete's right side and flows under the boat on the left side, he hits that thing and basically has no choice. Another negative issue Pete has going for him here is his paddle is in the upstream side of the current, which when it grabs water is going to pull that thing under the boat, really adding to the window shade. And basically he hits this thing and it just eats his lunch. It's important to keep your paddle on the downstream side of any cross current. The simple solution to this rapid would have been boat angle right, and you would have hit that seam perpendicular to it rather than parallel. And there's a couple other things you could have done, but that is a simple solution. If you see a seam, angle into it, go straight through that seam. Don't get your boat sideways in it. If you do, it happens fast. You'll know you did it wrong. Here's a scene from my French Broad trip. I had just run the top portion of Kayakers Ledge, and now I have to ferry across the current to get to the river right to get to the outflow. And you can see everything's in place. I have the correct C, a pretty aggressive lean. My paddle blade is in the water on the downstream side, and a bonus feature here, the orange depicts my focus. I'm already looking where I want to go. So as I come across that, I come to a pretty sharp S-turn, and I have to ride the inside and then shoot out into that cross current, and that's a lot of flow. I figured I would spare you all the diagrams because I'll just bet all of you can see it on your own now. And it's the same formula every time you hit a cross current, which is going to be most of the times a person flips on a river. In the next skill builder session, we'll talk about what to do when you encounter an obstacle that you broach upon, such as a rock, a tree, a stump, basically anything the current pushes you into that you impact. And there'll be a couple different things you can do there as well. So I hope you learned something, and hope your next trip on the water is a little bit drier. I'll leave you with a clip of myself back in the old days at the Whitewater Park, and see if you can identify some things I did well and some things I did not so well.
Pete, stuck in a whirlpool. Come on, Pete!